Hi, welcome to episode 4 of Beat the Status Quo from Choose to Think. My name is Harish, and in this episode, we'll be talking about establishing thought leadership in your team. First, something about us. At Choose to Think, we help teams and individuals up level. That means we help them bring change to their world, grow to new levels, and innovate. While doing so, we have amassed a treasure chest of ideas, wisdom, and frameworks which we share via this series called Beat the Status Quo. In the previous episodes in this series, we have covered ways to improve your chances at succeeding at your goals, lessons from autodidacts on how they learned while beating the status quo, and future trends at work. Everyone talks about showing thought leadership. Consulting organizations and companies that deliver services talk about thought leadership when they want to showcase the credentials of their employees. They're essentially answering the question, why us, by saying, because of our employees. While product companies typically don't position their employees' credentials, they in fact sell the product of the thought leadership their employees show. Service companies sell the employees' skills. So internally, every organization demands its employees to develop and show thought leadership. This is a term that is heard often during performance appraisal meetings and career counseling sessions. Here's something about thought leadership from the world of Dilbert. Does this sound familiar? So, what exactly does thought leadership mean? It usually means a body of work to establish one's credentials that helps create a brand for your team or you as an individual, and thus you're in demand. The body of work could mean books, patents, public persona through webinars, formal and informal publications, social media, etc. Of course, thought leadership can't just be in these asynchronous forms. To show genuine thought leadership, especially in the case of services and consulting organizations, you also need to show thought leadership in real time or actions. For example, coming up with ideas quickly, the number of ideas that you're able to come up with, the quality of those ideas, how left of the field your ideas are. Your style of work could also contribute to showing your thought leadership. The way you manage your time, your priorities, the work hacks, etc. The references you use in your work, talks, conversations, publications. What all other things you do. Share your knowledge via posts, Stack Overflow, discussion forums, webinars, etc. We recently came across an excellent TEDx talk by Gary Klein about insights. I'd highly recommend watching it. Gary Klein is a research psychologist famous for pioneering in the field of naturalistic decision making. He was working for the US government as a research psychologist for the US Air Force. The Arab oil embargo of 1973 meant that pilots needed to do more of their training in simulators, and Klein began his investigations into the way people develop expertise in decision making. My big takeaway from that talk was that you need to increase your exposure to situations in order to be ready to draw an insight and act upon it in a real life situation at work. Essentially, practice these situations. Similarly, you need to increase your practice areas to develop thought leadership as well. So, how can you uplevel your thought leadership game? Create a curiosity diet or plan. These could be books, summaries, articles. You've got to widen your sources of knowledge and make sure it's on a steady drip instead of one offs, which are restricted to only when you are on a plane or on vacation, unless, of course, you do either of those on a very, very regular basis. Tools of Titans is an excellent book written by Tim Ferriss, which is essentially a compilation of the hacks or best practices shared by all the people whom he has interviewed on his podcast. You could write down hacks that are relevant. I'm sure you have your own hacks that have helped you over the years. What if you created a blog post listing all those hacks? Participate in open IDEO style challenges. On this platform, there are sponsors which put up these challenges, and all participants are expected to come up with ideas and then keep working on those ideas to make them richer. Ideas come cheap, it's the implementation that matters. So don't worry about your ideas being given away for free. Create games for yourself, like get a great group of friends to discuss strategies. I know a group of friends which discusses everything from cricket, football, to politics, and what will the tactics and strategies be. Greeks were known to run thought experiments, and many important discoveries actually came out of such experiments. You could make these experiments fun by trying to guess, like this group, about what the next step for a CEO or a company would be. Do it for fun. Sometimes you could raise the stakes, create a thinking tournament. The kind of challenges that you could run in these thinking tournaments are like pre-mortem. For example, write a pre-mortem on a startup. You've all heard of postmortems. Pre-mortem is an important technique to identify what all can go wrong. The interesting thing is to assume that just like a postmortem, you have the dead body in front of you. The death has happened, and you are now trying to guess the reasons for it. In my experience, just changing the framing of the problem to state that the company has gone bankrupt, what could have led to this situation, allows you to come up with reasons you wouldn't have come up with if you had thought less aggressively. For example, let's come up with reasons for this company's failure, or how can we avoid bankruptcy, is different from saying that this company has gone bankrupt and now let's figure out why that happened. Start writing to show what you're curious about. This one might take some effort, especially if you've not been writing enough. A concrete manifestation of your curiosity is as important as being curious. You could start writing blogs, create webinars like this. You could even use Twitter to show this evidence. But sharing with the world is a must. You could do these challenges of writing something like say 10 sentences every day for the next 21 days, write 500 words for the next 55 days, or write a page every day for the next 100 days. These are great ways to build these habits like writing. To make any of this sustainable, you need to understand the habits you need to build and skills to learn and create a plan to get better at them realistically. That's all. Just get started. You can write to us if you need any help with developing new sustainable habits. That brings us to the end of this episode of the Beat the Status Quo series. We'll have more interesting topics for uplevelers like you coming up in the days ahead. You could join the Beat the Status Quo mailing list for early access to upcoming episodes and bonus recommendations. You could also write into us at contact@choosetothink.com to tell us what you thought of this episode and, of course, to recommend future topics. So that's all. Thank you.